It's been an emotional season.
We're gonna put Big Red to bed for the winter and try our new wash plant on some new ground. And
well, that's all we can do when he doesn't give us any manpower, so it is what it is.
I know that we all have differing opinions on what is a measure of success here or failure or whatever.
Mitch said he'd walk if Parker messed with his work again, and then Parker did the unthinkable. The belt was already flying, but Parker went behind everyone's back and cranked it up even more. Faster, wetter, wilder. Mitch didn't yell. He didn't wait. He stormed straight into a wash plant flooding like a busted dam. Tune in, because the next time Parker pulls a stunt like this, Mitch might not just leave. Mitch versus the roaring belt. That belt was roaring, the material overflowing like a busted dam. This wasn't running 20% faster. This was running 20% wilder. Parker thought fast meant better. Parker didn't think about anything else, but the one thing Parker never saw coming was already in motion, and it was hungry. Now water was pushing over the edge. The material was churning right out of the box. Mitch looked at it like someone who just saw their truck get keyed. The plant was drowning in water. That much water tears up the floor. Erosion, real damage. If they had to haul the plant out and rebuild it, that would take more time than they had. Mitch needed to fix it. Not slow everything down, not pause the job, just fix the mess. Parker's mess. He kept the feed rate the same, but he had a plan. If the nozzles were aiming wrong, maybe he could redirect the spray. Same amount of water, just aimed smarter. Change the way it hits. Change the way it spreads. Maybe then the plant could catch its breath. They shut it down just for a bit, not for long, just enough to swap some parts out and get it breathing again. Nobody had to stand around. He told them to let the feeder run dry, let the plant clear out. Everyone stepped back. Mitch grabbed a handful of new nozzles and checked out the spray bars. They were wide open, dumping water like a broken garden hose. Way too much. All that extra pressure was doing nothing but damage. He swapped in flared nozzles. Not high-tech, just better control. Enough to spray smarter, not harder. Spread it wider, break it up. If it worked, he could run the same dirt, same pace, but with less water. That's what mattered. Less mess, less flooding. The new setup looked tighter, more under control. Mitch dropped the water flow back to 2,800 gallons a minute, kept the pay dirt coming in at 300 yards per hour. Same force, smarter direction. They fired the whole thing back up. Mitch stood there staring at the box. The water? It calmed right down, spread out nice and smooth. The material too. No more churning over the edge. Not perfect, but finally manageable. Before it was like trying to dump a lake through a straw. Now it looked like a real operation. Meanwhile, over at the gold table, things were picking up. Tyson's smaller plant had been humming for 4 weeks straight. Australia Creek. The numbers were holding strong, around 145 ounces each week. This week, better. 50. Then another 100, then 200, 230, 260, all the way to 270 ounces, just over 270 and a bit extra. That pile of gold, worth more than $540,000 for 1 week. Not bad at all. Next in line, Roxanne. Sitting right in the money pit, she had promise. Maybe not as powerful as Big Red, but still no joke. Before Roxanne, Big Red was doing the heavy lifting, bringing in more than 370 ounces every single week. Mitch had fixed the mess, but now something way bigger had to move. 45 tons, one shot, no mistake. Ever seen a mountain move? That is what it looked like out there. With Tyson not around, the whole job landed on Damien and Alec. These two had to drag a monster wash plant called Slucifer across a rough mess of dirt, then yank it up a slope that looked like the side of a cliff. This machine is no toy. Slucifer weighs about the same as 45 elephants, and they had to haul it with a giant digger, grinding through mud like it owed them money. Time was ticking, and every minute lost meant gold slipping away. The plan was to move that beast of a wash plant 300 feet through a cut, then pull it up a slope with a 30-degree incline. The top was 40 feet higher than the bottom. The digger they used had tracks the size of a small car. Damien had worked with Parker for 3 seasons, but he had never done something like this before. First time moving the plant. That kind of task sticks with a person. They managed to get Slucifer off its pad without tipping it or breaking anything. That part alone took careful moves. Once it was on the ground, they pulled it across soft earth, slow and steady. It did not go sliding down the hill, which was a win by itself. Then came the hard part. That steep slope loomed ahead. Dragging 45 tons up that kind of incline was asking for trouble. If they got stuck halfway, it would be a nightmare to fix. There was only one chance to do it. No second tries. The machine started to slip. The ground under it was loose. Damien used the digger's hydraulics to pull and push, inching it upward. It was the kind of thing that made people hold their breath. One wrong move and the whole thing could come crashing down. But after 6 hours of careful pushing and pulling, Slucifer sat at the top of the hill right where it needed to be. Once the wash plant was in place, the crew rolled in the other gear. They brought in the stacker and the feeder, set up the water pumps and hoses, and fired the whole system up. The dirt was ready to run. Gold was waiting. Then Tyson showed up. He had been out dealing with a dog injury. Torn tendon, stitches, the works. But the crew had kept everything running without him. Machines were in place, dirt was flowing, water was moving, and the feeder was hooked in tight. Tyson just walked back into a job already done. Damien and Alec had kept the whole thing going. Nothing broke down. No one froze under pressure. That kind of work does not happen by chance. They turned to the dirt. Australia Creek was the area they were working. Parker had a goal to pull 5,000 ounces of gold that season. By this point, the count stood at 4,000 ounces. The creek had been giving them about 130 ounces each week. This run brought in a bit over 103 ounces. They counted the gold. First came 30 ounces, then 60, then 80, 90, then 103 ounces. On top of that, they melted down some superfine dust and made a gold disc. That added another 6 ounces. The total haul from this cleanup was just under 104 ounces. That amount of gold was worth about $27,000. The gold came in all shapes. There were tiny flakes, larger chunks, and the fine powder that takes skill to catch. Every bit mattered. The total kept creeping closer to the 5,000-ounce target, and there was still plenty of dirt to dig. Then came the big hit, the money pit. That section had been running hot for weeks. For 3 weeks straight, it had been spitting out more than 480 ounces a week. That kind of output was rare. This time, they started counting the gold slowly. First came 30 ounces, then 40. The pile grew to 100 ounces, then 140, then 150, then 200. It kept going. 220, then 250, 270. 280, 290. Then it climbed past 300 ounces, then 320, still going. Finally, they hit 361 ounces. That one pit gave them gold worth over $720,000. The count was a little lower than the week before, but no one was going to walk away from that kind of money. Add it all together. The creek gave them 103 ounces. The pit gave them 361. That made a total of 465 ounces in 1 week. That was a haul worth looking at twice. Every shovel of dirt that passed through Slucifer added more gold to the total. Every part of the system had to work without fail. No breakdowns, no shortcuts. Every hose, pump, belt, and bolt had to do its job. A slip in any of those pieces could mean lost hours or even lost gold. But it all held together. The feeder dropped dirt right where it needed to. The stacker sent rock flying. The wash plant rattled and hummed, shaking out gold from the mud like a giant sifter. The crew kept everything moving hour after hour. Even when tired, they worked through the grind. Slucifer stayed solid on top of the hill. No shifting, no sinking, no sliding. The pad they built held firm and the plant stayed steady. That let them keep running dirt around the clock. The gold totals told the story. Even with a drop in the weekly pit count, they still pulled over 460 ounces. That was not luck. That was planning, pushing, dragging, and never stopping. Every ounce had to be earned. The dirt did not give up its gold easy. The team worked the cut, loaded buckets, dumped rock, and caught the gold piece by piece. The creek dirt was slower but steady. The pit was faster, louder, and heavier. This kind of work left no time for mistakes. One loose bolt could stop a line. One slip on the slope could mean a whole machine wrecked. The crew worked under pressure and the numbers showed it. 465 ounces in 1 week, over $700,000 worth of gold. Not a record, but a monster haul. And the season was not over. The gold was good, but Parker had a wild new plan to try next. The switch that killed the power. Parker was done with Big Red for the season. That old wash plant had done its time, but now it was getting shut down, left to sit through the cold months ahead. Instead of coasting through the rest of the season, Parker had a bright idea. Try something new, risky, and maybe just a little dumb. He rolled out a brand new wash plant, hoping it could handle the pressure and maybe even push the season haul to $14 million. Not much time left. Big gamble. They got the new setup in place. Pumps were installed, shaker deck and conveyors hooked up. From the outside, it looked slick, clean. But everybody knew shiny metal does not mean it works. This thing had not run a single rock yet. It was all guesswork at this point. They threw water at it first, smooth flow, no wild spraying. That was a win. Now, onto the real test. Time to get it shaking. Except nothing shook. Power was dead. No lights, no movement, no signs of life. Not even the emergency stop buttons had juice. They tore into the wiring and opened the panels. Found the problem quick. Breaker had not been flipped on. One small switch, that was all it took. Power surged back, motors clicked, the deck came alive. Now with the machine humming, they started feeding dirt. That is when the next issue showed up. Water started leaking out from under the pre-wash tray, looked like a fitting had slipped or maybe just never got tightened. A hose clamp had given out, water sprayed everywhere. Real mess. They found the cause. The spray bar hose was too short. Not by much, just about ½ an inch. But ½ an inch in the wrong spot means leaking pipes and lost water pressure. Nothing they could do about the gap, so they shut off the spray bar altogether. A patch, not a fix. They just needed to see what else might break. With the bypass closed and the leaks mostly contained, it was time to try again. The conveyor belts started spinning and the dirt started flowing. After 2 years of waiting, building, planning, and money burning fast, Parker's custom wash plant was finally running. Maybe not perfect, but running. The team liked the feel of it. Still had bugs, but that is every new build. The important part was that it was finally out there doing the job. Still did not have a name. There were some ideas getting tossed around. Goldie Box, Rock Sand. Nobody could decide. The gold count was what really mattered. First, they cleaned out a section from the Australia cut. That area had brought in just over 100 ounces the week before. This time, it gave them 244 ounces. Almost $430,000 worth. Not bad at all. Then it was Big Red's final cleanup. This was the plant's big send-off. All eyes on the weigh-in. The totals rolled up. 50, 100, 140, 210, 280. Finally landed just over 310 ounces. Solid. That plant had worked hard right up until its last load. Now came the big test. The new wash plant only ran for 2 days. That short run still pulled in more gold than Big Red. Not by a little. 25% more. To beat Big Red's last number, the new plant needed to push out 150 ounces or more. They poured the gold onto the scale. 30, 35, 40, 56, 85. That was it. 56 ounces. Not enough, not even close. Disappointing. It looked good on paper, but in real life it did not deliver what they hoped for. Not yet. Even with that, they hit a big milestone. Total gold for the season crossed the 5,000 ounce mark. That was huge. The team stopped for a second to take that in. Big Red carried them most of the way. The rest would have to come from the new plant. It had to step up fast, but 5,000 ounces was not going to cut it anymore. They had bigger bills, bigger goals. A 7,000 ounce season would bring in $14 million. That would almost wipe out what they owed on Dominion Creek. First season, first try. Paid off. But getting there, that would be tough. The clock was ticking. Weather was not going to wait. Parker had put everything into this new setup. The gear, the land, the plan. Now it all had to work. There was not much room for mistakes anymore. Before the power issues even started, they had to drag the water line closer. The pump had been set up, the lines were laid, and the pressure had to be good enough to drive the whole system. Water got moving. The pressure checked out. No sputtering, no wild surges. That gave them the green light to start bringing in dirt. The first loads rolled in. The new shaker deck was running smoother now that the power was locked in. Vibration was good. The belts were moving material down the line. The team stayed close, eyes everywhere, hands on every switch and knob. Every sound meant something. Then came the leak. It started small, just a little mist from under the tray, but within minutes it turned into a jet. They ran around checking every connection. The loose clamp had let go. A thick line just spraying into the air, soaking everything in reach. They brought it down fast, but not before a good chunk of water got lost. That spray bar line being half an inch short, that should have been spotted before the test, but it got missed. Rather than shut everything down again, they made the quick call to just turn off the bar. They were still learning this plant, and with every hour running, they were finding more problems. That was the deal with something brand new. Once the patch was in, they brought dirt again. Heavier loads this time. The conveyors were solid. No slipping, no sagging. The belts took it all and dropped it straight into the wash. Vibration was even, and the screens held up. Gold traps looked like they were catching. Everyone was quiet, just watching. It was too early to celebrate, but it felt like it might be working. The rest of the day went by without major issues, some squeaks, a bit of clogging, but nothing that stopped them cold. After that, it was time to clean up and weigh in. Australia Creek gave them that bump with 244 ounces. Big Red's final cut followed it with just over 310 ounces. And the new wash plant on its 2-day test pulled 56 ounces. It was something, but not what they needed. Not yet. Still, the season total hit 5,066 ounces. That pushed them over the line early. The goal now had to shift. With all the extra equipment they bought and the payments they owed, they needed more than 5,000. 7,000 ounces would bring in $14 million and nearly cover the cost of Dominion Creek. Luck, hustle, or just timing, what really got them over the line? Like, comment with your take, and subscribe for more.